Two retired U.S. Navy veterans, Carl Schuster and Keith Stewart, recently made remarks on China's latest aircraft carrier, the Fujian. They pointed out that what they called fatal flaws, claiming that its combat capability is only about 60% of the U.S.'s Navy's Nimitz class from several decades ago. These comments have gathered widespread attention in China. An aircraft carrier is a significant national asset, requiring vast resources. The US has spent years perfecting its carriers with extensive designs, data, and experience. So how could China fall short even when copying an existing design? Interestingly, it's not just the US experts who notice these issues. Chinese users, well before the American experts, have already uncovered the same flaws months ago. In March of this year, a Chinese user named Li Wan on the platform Zhihu used a model to break down the Fujian's deck problems. What the American experts pointed out in October, he had already thoroughly explained back in March, and with more detail. This raises a bigger question. If regular users can spot these flaws, how can China's design team not see them? Of course, they can see them. The question is, why continue with this design? The answer goes beyond just technical issue. It's far more concerning. Number 1. The rush to complete, 13 years of wartime speed. To understand why the Fujian has so many issues, consider one number, 13 years. In 2012, China acquired the Liaoning, a used aircraft carrier from Ukraine. By 2025, China's first electromagnetic catapult-powered carrier, the Fujian, will be operational. This rapid development, going from zero to a world-class carrier in just 13 years, is quite impressive. For comparison, the United States took 53 years from the first experimental carrier, Langley, in 1922 to the first operational Nimitz-class nuclear-powered carrier in 1975. The Soviet Union took 24 years from their first helicopter carrier in 1967 to the Kuznetsov, their only operational carrier, which entered service in 1991. China, on the other hand, took just 13 years to go from nothing to electromagnetic catapults. Observers believe that this is not the usual pace for a country developing military assets in peacetime. It's more like the speed of a wartime project, driven by the belief that a conflict could be imminent. There's usually no time to wait for perfection when decisions have already been made to accelerate the timeline. This urgency explains why the Fujian has so many design flaws. Number 2. The deck's design flaw, the golden zone squeezed into a pigeon cage. Now, let's get into the specifics of the Fujian's design, starting with the deck layout and why it's flawed. It's important to note that the aircraft carrier deck isn't just a flat surface. It's divided into different sections, some of which are more efficient than others. There are 3 key areas on the deck that determine its operational efficiency. The triangle zone located at the front right of the carrier, the area behind the island, the left side of the landing runway. The triangle zone is considered the most efficient part of an aircraft carrier because it's spacious, close to the catapult, and allows planes to maneuver independently. For instance, a US FA-18 can make a 180-degree turn in a small space, refuel, load weapons, and take off without needing ground crew. This enables a fast operational cycle, key to the US Navy's 75-minute strike cycle. As a result, US carriers are designed to maximize the zone, no matter the cost. In contrast, the area behind the island is much less efficient. Planes that arrive here can't move on their own and rely on ground crew to push them around. The US Navy even nicknamed this area the Yard, indicating how much it's undervalued in terms of operational efficiency. The left side of the angled runway is the least efficient area of all. Planes must cross paths with aircraft landing, which creates significant risk for delays. Ground crew also has to wait for the right moment to move planes, potentially disrupting the entire landing process. When we look at the Fujian's design, its biggest flaw becomes clear. The triangle zone is much smaller, effectively reducing it to something more like a pigeon cage. It severely limits its operational efficiency. Consider the US Ford-class carriers. In their triangle zone alone, they can fit 2 rows of planes, 22 in total. In contrast, the Fujian can only fit 1 row, holding a maximum of 11 planes. The reason for this difference lies in several design limitations. The hull is 20 meters shorter. and the large conventional smokestack cannot be moved, forcing the island to be positioned centrally. The catapult system is too long, intruding into the triangle zone. On top of that, a missile lift was placed in this critical area, effectively limiting its use of aircraft. Instead, the space can only temporarily store bombs or drones. As a result, while US carriers have spacious, efficient triangle zones, the Fujian is much less functional. This lack of space means that the Fujian has to fit 10 of its aircraft into the yard behind the island. Even one more plane would not be able to fit in. In total, this limits the number of aircraft that can be stored on China's carriers, leaving it with at least one less aircraft than US carriers. Number 3. The overly large aircraft. One big plane, one big problem. While the design of the Fujian's deck may have inherent limitations, its aircraft are the real issue, and this problem may be even more critical. China's carrier-based planes are simply too large. The J-15, based on the Sovereign Su-33, is one of the largest carrier-based jets in the world. It's nearly 4 meters long than the US's Super Hornet, taking up 34% more deck space. The J-35, China's latest stealth fighter, is also larger than the US's F-35C, with a 21% larger footprint. What does this mean in practical terms? To put it simply, on the space required for 3 US Super Hornets, the Fujian can only fit 2 J-15 aircraft, and where the US can park 5 F-35Cs, the Fujian can only fit 4 J-35 jets. This leads to a subtle difference in deck capacity. While the US has 22 aircraft on its deck and China has 21, the comparison isn't as close as it seems. The US can park the jets in spacious, efficient spaces, while China's Fujian has to make do in a cramped area, with half of its planes requiring ground crew to move them. This results in slower, less efficient aircraft handling. Number 4. The deadly delay, elevator and launch timing bottlenecks. The crowded deck isn't the only issue. Inside the Fujian, the aircraft hangar has its own challenges. Again, the size of the aircraft is causing 2 critical bottlenecks. The J-15 is simply too large to maneuver on its own inside the hangar. To resolve this, the Fujian had to install a large turntable at the hangar elevator entrance to help the planes turn around. This turntable takes up space, so to make room, the ship could only have 3 elevators, all positioned on the right side. The left side elevator was removed entirely. In contrast, the US Nimitz class has 4 elevators with a key one located at the rear left. This elevator is essential for smooth operation, dividing tasks between 2 sides. The right elevators carry aircraft up from the hangar to the deck, while the left side elevator handles planes coming down from the deck, avoiding any interference and ensuring continuous efficient operations. On the Fujian, however, all aircraft must pass through the 3 right side elevators, leading to major delays. Aircraft either coming down or going up must wait their turn, creating a bottleneck in operations. This becomes the main limitation for the Fujian's operational rhythm. The US Navy operates on a strict timeline for its aircraft: takeoff, mission completion, return, reloading, and launch again, all within a 75-minute cycle. On the Fujian, this process is slowed down and the aircraft remain on the deck for about 60 minutes, if not longer, due to the slower elevator system. This time difference is crucial. In a 6-hour battle, US carriers can conduct 5 full rounds of flight operations, while the Fujian would only manage 4. That one round could be the difference between victory and defeat. So despite all the hype around China's electromagnetic catapult, capable of launching 3 aircraft per minute, the issue is that the planes on the deck can't keep up with the pace. The catapult ends up waiting for planes to be ready. The angle issue, a necessary compromise to save deck space. Let's take a look at the 6-degree and 9-degree angle issue raised by the 2 US veterans. The Fujian opt for a smaller 6-degree angle as a trade-off to preserve the already limited parking space behind the island. If the angle were increased to the 9.5 degrees used by US carriers, the angled runway would intrude into the space behind the island, further crowding the already tight deck. This wasn't a result of poor design choices, but a difficult decision made under the pressure of oversized aircraft and a constrained triangle zone. The angle was reduced to ensure that basic flight operations could still be carried out. The problem with the Fujian goes beyond the angle or the lack of elevators, it's a deeper systemic issue. The use of conventional power required the smoke stack to be placed in the center, taking up valuable space in the triangle zone. To accommodate this, the runway angle had to be adjusted, further reducing parking space behind the island. The large size of the aircraft necessitated a turntable, which led to the removal of a left side elevator. This reduced hangar capacity and decreased operational efficiency. With only 3 elevators, scheduling efficiency is significantly affected. The size of the aircraft plays a major role in the Fujian's limitations, and this issue is one of the ship's biggest challenges. Considering all the limitations, it's actually remarkable that China has managed to develop a ship like this. However, when compared to the US carriers that have been in service for over 80 years and are nuclear powered, it still falls short. This is not something that can be rushed. Number 6, the most expensive mistake. Why not just lengthen the ship by 20 meters? Given all the issues with the tight deck space, many people might wonder why the ship wasn't simply lengthened by 20 meters to solve the problem. While the idea may seem straightforward, lengthening the ship is one of the most costly misconceptions when it comes to resolving deck space limitations. It's not that China couldn't build a longer ship. The Shanghai shipyard where the Fujian was built is one of the most advanced in the world, capable of constructing vessels of up to 400 meters long and weighing 700,000 tons. Extending the Fujian from 316 meters to 333 meters, matching the length of the Nimitz class, wouldn't pose any industrial challenges. So why wasn't the ship lengthened? Lengthening the ship isn't as simple as adding a few extra sections to the hull. It would trigger a chain of complications. For each 20-meter extension, the ship's displacement increases by about 5,400 tons, the equivalent of a large destroyer. This means the propulsion system would need a complete overhaul. A heavier ship would require a more powerful engine, larger boilers, new turbines, and bigger fuel tanks, all of which would take up valuable space and reduce hangar capacity. The ship's size would also affect its docking capabilities. Port facilities would need to be expanded, requiring significant investment in infrastructure. Extending the Fujian to match the length of the Nimitz class would increase a displacement from around 80,000 tons to 110,000 tons, the weight of a nuclear-powered carrier. This would mean paying the cost of a nuclear-powered carrier while still having a conventional-powered ship. Some others might wonder why not just widen the triangle zone or move the island back. The simple answer, the smokestack is immovable. Conventional carriers require a smokestack to vent exhaust. Unlike household chimneys, a carrier stack cannot bend. It must run vertically from the boiler room to the deck. The location of the smokestack dictates where the island can be placed. If the island were to be moved or the triangle zone expanded, it would require redesigning the entire power system. Given the technical risk involved with the Fujian, the first carrier to use electromagnetic catapults, this would have been an impractical decision. Number 7, the real issue. It's not about the technology, it's about the process. The problem with the Fujian goes beyond the technology or the catapult system. The core issue lies in the way things are done in China, where political goals often take precedence over practical engineering solutions. The first problem, a focus on deadlines rather than quality. When the higher up sets a deadline, the focus shifts to showing visible results. The priority becomes launching the ship, getting it to sea, and making sure planes take off from the deck. These milestones make for good political achievements, but the real operational challenges, like how often planes can take off or how quickly they can refuel, are overlooked. What matters is getting a product that looks good on camera, not one that can perform effectively in combat. The second problem, a reluctance to take responsibility. With ongoing anti-corruption campaigns, no one wants to step forward and take responsibility. Nuclear power would offer the best efficiency and range, but the risks are high. What happens if something goes wrong? Who takes the blame for exceeding the budget? Moving the island to create more deck space will require major design changes. Who would be accountable if the project fails? In China, avoiding mistakes is often seen as more important than taking risks. As a result, the safest choice was made. Stick with conventional power, keep the island where it is, and forego adding the elevator on the left. This decision may seem stable, but it limits future potential. The third problem, prioritizing appearance over function. The focus on publicity was clear. The ship was marketed as made in China, one of a kind, and featuring electromagnetic catapults. The promotional videos emphasized dramatic launches, creating a compelling image. But in actual combat, the key question is how many planes can be launched in a minute and how many missiles can be intercepted. These practical concerns weren't fully addressed. The fourth problem, treating the ship as a symbol of national strength. For many, the Fujian became a political symbol rather than true combat asset. The focus shifted from performance to creating an image of success. Whether the ship could actually perform in a battle became secondary to how it looked in public. As a result, the Fujian is seen as a political victory, while its engineering flaws are rarely discussed until they become evident on the battlefield. So, how can the public assess what's really happening here? Keep an eye on three key changes for the next ship. First, will it continue using conventional power or will there be a shift to something more advanced? Second, will they add the left side elevator to improve operations? And third, will the island be moved to create more deck space? As for the aircraft, pay attention to whether the new J-35 is more streamlined and efficient, and whether the number of airborne early warning aircraft and their operational frequency increases. Also, listen carefully to the rhetoric. Will the focus shift from first made in China to talking about how many planes can be launched in 1 minute and the turnaround rate? If the language changes, it signals a real shift in priorities. If it stays the same, it's just more of the same political posturing. In the end, the Fujian isn't a design built by engineers to win battles. It's a political project meant to impress the leadership. While it may win the PR battle, it's unlikely to win the real one.